I moved to California for a brief period, like 3 years.
What brought you out there?
Oh, I was, trying it out. And
just trying out the nice sunshine life?
I had it with New York. I don't know. I felt like it had changed a lot, and I was getting a little panties in a twist. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, okay, it'll be easy. Move out there. It'll be great. And it was really hard.
Did you move to LA or San Francisco?
Moved to LA. I was in Laurel Canyon. And it was kind of isolating, and the weather didn't change. I like weather. So I realized it didn't suit me, and then, I came back. It's bad because I was quoted in that article saying, I hate California, which isn't true. I just like to visit. I just hated living there.
Yeah, there's also a lot of it, too. Like,
I
I'm from
love
up north.
New York. I mean...
Yeah. But also, I'm from, San Francisco, which is very different than L.A. But I get it from the standpoint of... we were talking before we turned on the mics about being in the office building. LA's similar to that, wherein it's impossible to really gauge the passage of time there without seasons. It's the same temperature all the time.
Yeah, and it was a big drought then. I moved there in 2011, and it just never rained. It was bizarre.
Was the idea to be closer to the music industry? Was that part of it?
Oh, no.
No?
No, it was complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, but
personal
when
stuff.
I came back... It was like a love affair with New York. I was so happy to be back. I made all these new friends. It's just kind of more, I have a lot of family over on the East Coast, and I have my chosen family here. So
it was almost necessary to get away for a little bit.
It helped me. It helped me really appreciate it. That's the silver lining. Cost me a fortune, but hey.
As far as just moving from one place to the other?
Yeah, it's very hard to move.
It's hard to stay here, too. It's really expensive.
I know. That's why I want to move out to Queens.
Yeah. What's kept you in New York all these years? You're a Midwesterner, right?
Yeah, but, I fell in love with New York the minute I moved here in 79.
Yeah.
I thought this is like where I want to be. So it's got everything. And I found it really friendly. And I met a lot of amazing people that are still my friends 40 years later. My band, it's like that. We're very tight. We're really close. So it really kept me here.
Are you one of those people who gets a little sort of nostalgic for the grime and the crime? And
Yeah, but that doesn't do you any good. I mean, I try to go with the flow. I mean, the whole country is... ass backwards right now. I mean, I don't really know. It's kind of a reflection, I think, of what's going on in the country. All this greed and gentrification, and it just is a reflection of the country. And I'm trying to, in my own way, do what I can to fight it.
I feel like people in DC probably feel this even more, but it's a bubble in a lot of ways, right? Like politically, it's a bubble, and varying degrees of surprise when something like Trump happens. But on the flip side, this is the epicenter of all finances for the country and really the world in a way. You're really getting both ends of the spectrum. You're getting one of the most progressive places in the U.S., but you're also just getting the landlords and the Wall Street and all these other terrible things.
And there's just no kind of foresight going on. Like, there's all these hotels and all this building, really mostly ugly buildings as far as I can see. Yeah. And I saw the buildings come down that I thought were really cool that before they were protected. And that was sad. Like, I love the buildings. I have an attachment to the architecture and the old. I love it. So that's what Queens is good for. You go out there and you're like back in time with the mom and pop shops.
Yeah. Do you feel a connection to any of the music scene out here? Are you still active in it?
Yeah. Well, my son is in a band.
Okay.
My son, he's Austin Julian, so he's got a band called Sediment Club, or he had one. And he does a solo thing called Sunk Heaven. And I see his friends and I see his band, and try to, I think there's a whole thing going on. But, it's harder for me to go out and see him at 2 or 3 in the morning. But I do what I can. I like to see him, and I like that it's left of center. There's a lot of interesting things going on.
Is he's cool with having his mom out at the show?
Yeah. Well, I'm not the average mom, I guess.
Sure. I feel like if I was in a rock band and my mom came out to the show, I think it would be a little weird for me.
Yeah, well... I never had that. He always loved my band, and his friends love it. The Bush Tetras kind of kept their cred a little bit.
They did.
Yeah. People who know about it anyway, it's kind of this, it's not like it's a huge band, but it's definitely has cred because it's not a commercial band.
I think those two things are very much not mutually exclusive of
right
of you not being like mainstream, but also being able to keep that level of cool or that level of mystique. Because if you had gotten past a certain point, you know, if we were the Go-Go's, yeah, well,
if his mother was Belinda Carlisle, he might have a problem.
Well, his life would probably be different in other ways if his mother was Belinda Carlisle, I guess.
Yeah, but I feel like it's unusual musically, and I think people are still interested in that.
Do you feel that there was a time when you kind of had those opportunities? Did you see those opportunities to become not necessarily the Go-Go's, but to kind of cross some thresholds and, you know, and become something a little more mainstream?
Well, I think we blew it a little before that moment.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's I don't regret that, because I feel we were real punky. Like, we were not into being told what to wear or play. So I don't know if that would have even played out.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know,
way.
It's tough, right? I mean,
and we were girls, so like, I think if we had been male, it would have been different. But I think girls at that point, they didn't know what to do with us, really, because we didn't dress like the other girl bands, and we didn't sound like the other girl bands. We were pretty dark. We had more in common with the English bands like the Au Pairs, and I don't know. It's a good question, but I think it served us not to do that, because we're always just not interested in being commercial. So it left us to a lot of freedom to just express ourselves the way we wanted to.
I think you used a phrase, was it blew up before that? What happened in there?
Oh, the usual.
The usual?
Yes.
Such as?
There was, drugs. And just bad choices with managers and not having managers that we could have had. We didn't really have anybody that was pulling for us and that could have kind of corralled us. We were just a little out of control at that point. We had a lot fast, and we were touring and burned ourselves out, and it kind of imploded.
Do you feel like the initial rise was quick?
Yeah, it was fast. I mean, in '79, I had no idea I was going to be in a band, and they talked me into it. So the end of '79, so by February 1980, we had our first gig, and then we recorded in the summer, June. So it was fast. Yeah, it was pretty fast. And then we had, that single was on Billboard charts, and it was fast.
Maybe up to a certain point, being idiosyncratic and different, being a band full of women, maybe those were actually marked advantages up to, when you were first starting out. Maybe these are things that you can use to set yourself apart from everybody else, but that maybe ultimately at some point become a liability.
Well, I think, to be true to yourself is invaluable.
Sure.
I mean, I can play those songs and be really happy playing those old songs that are 40 years old. And then when we were writing new songs, they're just as true to ourselves as they were then. So,
but I'm sure there's a lot of people who are true to themselves but still find themselves banging their heads against the wall, who don't really get that sort of initial success early on. Do you get a sense of why the stars kind of aligned for those early years?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of chemistry. We had a lot of chemistry that you can't really explain that. And I've been thinking about it because it's still happening. So we'll get in the studio and I'll have some ideas. I have lyrics and Pat has some guitar line and just poof, it just happens. And that's how it happened in the beginning.
It must make it extra difficult when the time comes to, replace a member for any reason is, how do you recreate that?
We've been lucky because Pat D and I have been together for 40 years. We had a little respite where Don Christensen and Bob Albertson played. But mainly it was us with Laura, and then Laura left the band, and we've had a bass player thing. But
the bass player is your drummer, your Spinal Tap drummer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we're really lucky. I don't know how it happened. we just we won the lottery because she's perfect. So it's really great for us. She just fits in.
That brief respite, as you said, that you had when you brought in a couple of other people, I suspect that might have really brought into sharp focus how important chemistry is, that you can't just bring somebody else in and you can't just swap out other people.
Well, we had something different. I mean, I really we had a couple songs with them, It's So Weird and Who's Gonna Pay. We had songs that we wrote with them that we loved, but they were really different. And it wasn't really the same thing.
And you feel like in even now, even 40 years later, the minute you get in a recording studio or get on stage, that everything just kind of clicks back into place?
Yeah, it's pretty magical.
Yeah.
I feel blessed with that. That's kind of amazing. Yeah, and we're having just we're writing a lot, so we're going to play a new song that nobody's heard yet. Like, because we like doing that, we like taking the opportunity to play it out. So we're going to do our 40th anniversary show on the 21st, and we'll do the old songs, but we're really excited about this new song we're doing, and we have all these surprises and old friends coming on stage with us. It's fun.
Are you a nostalgic person generally?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I feel like lucky that, in my 20s, I had an amazing time. It was an amazing time in New York in 1980. It was really exciting, and there was so much to do, so many great things going on. I mean, I had a blast. So I look at it, but I don't look backwards constantly.
Yeah.
I like where I am now. I mean, I have a lot of fun now.
What brought you out to New York in the first place?
Well, I was in Cleveland, and
Cleveland has its own charms.
Cleveland had a lot going on.
Yeah.
There was like Devo and
Para Ubu and
Rubber City Rebels, Destroy All Monsters, all these bands, and we used to go out on Thursday nights to see these bands play at this place. And I went to art school there, and I met Laura Kennedy there.
I mean, talk about like idiosyncratic music and an idiosyncratic scene. Like, there's some weird shit happening in Cleveland at that time.
And I feel like that was a weird little hub there.
Yeah.
It had a great radio station, and the art school was amazing, and I had a lot of freedom to do cool art there. But I kept hearing these New York bands, the Ramones and Richard Hell and the Voidoids, and I'd get these singles, and I was like, I want to go to New York. So my roommate and I, we got like a U-Haul, and we moved to New York. I was really excited. I felt like the first time I came to New York, since I was, from when I was a kid, I came to visit, and I stayed at the Hotel Empire, and these friends that were going to Columbia got me a hotel room for free. Yeah. And I walked all the way down, and I thought...
That was up in Washington Heights?
No, it was Upper West Side.
Okay.
And I walked all the way down Broadway, all the way down.
Yeah.
And I just, sometimes you just know. Yeah. I felt really comfortable there. Because in Cleveland, although there were really cool things going on, it was really hard. I mean, I used to get harassed constantly. And I didn't feel...
Just like street harassment, you mean?
Or? Yeah, I had purple stripes on my hair.
Street harassment certainly does happen here, but it's not necessarily people yelling at you for looking weird.
Yes. So
I mean, just as a woman walking down the street generally.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we wrote that song, Pretty Much Too Many Creeps. But no, there it was more like you just didn't fit in. You felt like you didn't fit in. And I wanted to fit in somewhere. Yeah. So when I came to New York, it just felt like, wow, this is it. This is what I like.
It does sound like, to some degree, you did find your weirdos in Cleveland, your group of people in Cleveland. They were there, certainly the music scene, the art scene, but
nobody stayed.
Nobody stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, let's get out of here. The river caught on fire. It was a big mess there. It was really depressed.
Catch on fire, yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like New York was depressed then.
Sure.
It was really cheap to live there, and nobody wanted to live there.
You did kind of trade one depression for another, right?
But there was more of a scene that was crossing a lot of artistic genres. There was like film going on. There was There was art, street art. There was so much going on there.
What happened?
And music.
What happened
writing.
to that roommate?
Oh, well, it's Barbara Clark. She's an amazing jeweler.
Okay.
And
So she stuck around?
She did.
Yeah.
She's up in Woodstock now.
Okay.
But yeah, we had this crazy cat on the floor that was like howling the whole time. It was a hellish trip. But once we got to New York, we never looked back.
The cat came with you?
Cat came with us, Olivia. Yeah.
Did Olivia adjust at all to New York City life, or was she still pretty?
She was always a bitch.
Yeah.
You know, she was a bitch in Cleveland. She was a bitch in New York, but she was a queen bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can take the bitch out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the bitch, or however that goes. What's interesting is that it was music that drew you out here, but you really didn't have any particular musical ambitions.
Right. I was going to be a fashion designer. But I had a couple of, I had applied to the Fashion Institute, and they didn't give me any credits for my art school that I'd gone 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went, screw this. And plus I had a brief stint at some clothing place on the Upper East Side, and I got into a huge row with the owner, and I said, I hate this business. It was very male dominated, and I just didn't have the drive for the fashion world. I mean, I liked it, and I made some cool clothes. I used to design clothes when I first moved here, but then I just quickly knew that it wasn't for me. I didn't have what it takes. I mean, you have to be really driven, because you have to put up with a lot. I wasn't really willing to do that. So doing music, I just fell into it.
I feel like everything that you use to describe fashion, you can use to describe music, right? Male dominated.
Yeah,
you have to be
exactly.
really driven. It's easy to kind of fall flat on your face. These are all absolutely ways that you could use to describe music, especially back then.
But you're on your own. When I hooked up with these 3 other weirdos, it was, a collaboration. And I think in my heart, collaborating was the way to go for me, because doing it by myself, I was a portrait artist too, and just doing the visual art and the fashion, it was just so kind of lonely. I liked doing the collaboration. It was exciting because you're kind of combining things. It's kind of magical. Yeah. You put these things together and you have this work of art.
So you were writing poetry at the time?
I was, if you call it, yeah. I was writing poetry at the time.
If you could call it that, what would you call it?
We were all writing poetry. Yeah. Laura, Dee, Pat, and I. And we kind of even cut them out Dada style.
Oh,
and put
Burroughs.
them together. That's how we wrote Cowboys in Africa. Yeah. We all were writing. And I mean, Dee wrote Rituals. We were all writing. But I kind of took over the writing after a while.
Do you get a sense of what it was as somebody, again, who didn't particularly have musical ambitions, who maybe kind of just wrote poems as a hobby? Do you have a sense of what it was that they saw in you that maybe you didn't see at the time?
Well, I think it wasn't important then.
Yeah.
You didn't have to be a musician. Nobody knew how to play their instruments. There was just so much possibility then. I can't even describe it. It was you could really have poetic license to do whatever you wanted. It was a magical time. And I know that sounds nostalgic, but it's it's a fact. It was just there weren't all those restrictions. It was a moment when people could just people would be in a band and a filmmaker, and in a band and do artwork, like Jean-Michel. Everybody could combine a lot of different arts, and everything was cool.
Did the other things fall away pretty quickly? Did the fashion and the painting?
I designed little outfits for the band, little striped things for our first gig. Yeah, but then I stopped. And then I think I restarted. I was doing some clothing with Lydia Lunch as my manager, which was
she was your clothing manager?
Yes.
How does that work?
Oh, it didn't work that well.
Didn't work. The answer is it didn't work.
Yeah, it was brief.
Yeah.
But, I always loved fashion. I mean, I still love that. But, to make a whole career of it. I went into teaching after that. And that was pretty easy segue because you're performing.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching I teach everything.
Yeah.
I taught art at first, and that was fun, but I really loved teaching writing, so that's when I got into the poetry, like teaching poetry and the value of poetry. It was nice to teach children the value of poetry.
Art has always struck me as an incredibly difficult thing to teach, unless you're teaching it, as like a trade school. It's just so subjective.
Yeah, it is, but it's almost like teaching the tools. Like you just have certain tools that you can use, and then giving them the license to do whatever they want. Just making sure as a teacher you provide a safe environment for them to feel like they can do what they want to express themselves, and it's good. So I'd get really excited if a kid used a simile. I'm like, this is such a cool comparison. And the kids would come up with really great things that would inspire me because they're so naive and so, they don't have the restrictions.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, and with art too, they don't have any restrictions. They decide somewhere around fourth grade if they're a good or bad artist. It's so sad. And you just go, no, please.
Yeah. It is like punking away, isn't it? As long as no one's telling you that you can't do it.
Yeah.
That's why we decided to give up on things, because somebody somewhere has given us the idea that we're not good at it.
And they do that a lot.
Did music ever really go away completely for you?
No, I had a lot of other projects I did. I think Bush Tetras, and I think it was so bad with my timeline, but I think it was around 97, 98. We got dropped by our label, Polygram.
That's a pretty good run.
Yeah, but, it was off and on.
Sure.
It was really... And I had a band with my husband, Ivan Julian. We did a band, and I had those other things going on. But that was pretty heartbreaking because we loved the record we made with Don Fleming. We loved it. It was called Happy. And then it just got shelved. So that was pretty heartbreaking. And I think... And I had a baby. I had a young kid at that point. Well, he wasn't really a baby by then, but I had to really, hustle. I had to make some bread. So it was just kind of became more of a hobby thing.
Did you put things on hold when the kid first came along?
Well, he was born in 89, the end of 89, and Bush Tetras really weren't doing much, but I had done a band with his dad, Ivan, and that band, we kind of kept it, trying to keep it going till, it was 91. And it was just too hard. And then I started this other band called 1-900-Box in 92, I think.
That is such a great early 90s name for a band.
Oh, my
it's
God.
Almost
It was all
you would have called
girls.
it .com if it had been
right.
8 years later.
Yeah, it was a great band, but that didn't last long. And then, I just had to make money. I was a single parent. I had to make money. It's no joke in New York. I put myself back through school. I paid for everything.
What's being in a band with your husband like? I mean, how much strain does that put on a relationship?
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Can't imagine not only working with a spouse, but also touring with a spouse and attempting to do something creative. Because just being in a band with another person, even let alone, somebody you're not in a relationship with at all, this is why bands break up. Right?
Yeah, it's really hard. And plus, I think when in 88, or in 89, I was pregnant, but we were trying to pretend I wasn't pregnant somehow. And I had really bad morning sickness.
Sure.
And, oh my God, that was really hard. And it was crazy. So, I think it's ill-fated. I think it's really hard, unless you have things really worked out, which we didn't. But, I have so much respect for him. He's such an amazing player. He's there's some moments on stage.
Yeah.
I mean, do solos. I was just unbelievably talented person.
There's certainly an upside to it. I was speaking with somebody recently who was a musician, married to a musician, and the upshot of it is that there's sort of an implicit understanding that how your life is structured and that you're going to go away on tour. you don't have to have those sorts of like hyper specific conversations with them because they just know what the life is like.
Yeah, but once the kid comes into play, he had to join Matthew's suite. You know, he had to do gigs that made him money. Sure. And then I was home with the kid. So it really changes everything. I think that's why a lot of people that are in bands together don't have kids. I mean, I don't know how you really do that unless you make a ton of money and have a nanny along. And I don't know how that works. I never got to find that one out.
Yeah, I've spoken to some jam bands who that very much seems to be a thing where they have, you know, their giant tour bus and like all the kids are on the bus and it's all just like Woodstock all the time. It absolutely does.
Right. I didn't have those jam bands.
Sure. Why did you feel it necessary to hide that you were pregnant at the time?
Oh, that was Ivan's idea. I don't know. I don't think he wanted... He didn't, you know, it's like these things, these constraints that you think like people wouldn't like the band if they knew we were a couple. So he was trying to hide we were a couple. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It wasn't my idea. I just kind of went along with everything.
Do you feel like there was ever a point that there was any point when you really sort of shot yourself in the foot and didn't do something because it didn't feel like punk enough?
Punk enough.
You know, that it just didn't feel cool enough that you made some, you know, something I talk to people about a lot are the kinds of arbitrary decisions that we make when we're younger, the stands that we take.
Yeah, well, the band, we were like brats, like Bush Tetras.
Yeah.
There were people offered us, you know, management.
Yeah.
We're like, fuck that. I'm not going to pay 20%. It was like ridiculous, you know, and then, that was really shooting ourselves in the foot. We did it a lot. Or we took advice of like touring constantly and we weren't able to write. That wasn't smart. We just didn't take guidance well. And we hired friends. You know, some people ripped us off. I mean, we weren't good business people. We're much better now.
Yeah.
So we made many mistakes. Yeah. But that's part of being like, you know, on the planet, you're human.
Yeah.
I don't really like to regret things. I feel like, you know, things happen for a reason. And then, I mean, I'm super happy that I have this wonderful, amazing kid. So I never regret anything that is anything attached to that. So I feel really lucky. And I feel lucky that we kind of all of us kind of got through whatever we needed to get through to get to the other side, to be able to respect each other and play together. Because we're not like Metallica. We get along pretty well. I mean, we have arguments, but we always work it out. Like, always. There
was a point in the past when you couldn't work it out.
Well, yeah. Dee quit the band early on in like 83 or, you know, a little 83.
Yeah.
And then
really
and Laura
kind of the height.
Yeah, but, you know, he went on to do things he needed to do.
Yeah.
Like he played in a band with his wife, Dear Friends, and then he was in a band with Jeffrey Lee, Gun Club. Mm-hmm. Great bands.
Yeah.
I never begrudge people. They need to do what they need to do. See, I'm a hippie at heart. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a waste of time, really, to feel like, I mean, we learned from our mistakes and how we were treating each other, too. So that's kind of part of being on the planet. You have to learn how to treat each other.
If the band hadn't come along, you might have been the jewelry maker who moved to Woodstock.
It could be.
That could have just as easily been your trajectory.
Or, making clothes for Patricia Fields or whatever. I know. It's funny how it's like fate. I don't know how that happens. I mean, I had to take a big leap, and I was really scared to get on stage. So I had to get past that.
How long did that take?
Stage fright. Oh, I mean, we had so many gigs. Our second gig was at Irving Plaza.
Yeah.
So I had to just get over it. There's something that was driving me. I liked it. You know, I liked it. I was
scared. You had your eyes closed for most of the first and second gigs?
Yeah. And what didn't get in that article was really, I was really into playing guitar. I still am, but it's like the act of singing and playing
Sure.
and having those responsibilities.
Walking and chewing gum.
So
and,
I had the guitar on standby. The amp was
Yeah.
on standby. The whole gig.
Oh, so you were strumming.
Yeah, I'm playing. Something's coming out. I pick it up, play it, and it's like
Yeah.
ridiculous. So that's when I went, forget it. I just can't. And I think Pat likes to play alone. I only did accents. I only kind of used it percussively. So I just kind of like doing percussion because I could get tones out of the cowbell and I could do things with my percussion. I'm still into percussion. I'm a frustrated drummer. Really, if I could do anything, I'd be a drummer.
Yeah.
I love drums. I'm a little obsessed with drumming.
Is that something that you pursued further?
No.
No.
Now that I'm retired, maybe
Yeah.
I'll take some drum lessons.
Absolutely. Now,
Torture
once
D
you
and
move
make
to
him give me
Queens,
lessons.
you can
Exactly.
get a drum set.
I'm going to
yeah.
set up a kit right in my living room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love, when I go see bands, I pay attention a lot to the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
I have some favorites.
Having that much stage fright that you literally can't open your eyes for most of it does not sound like a pleasant experience. What kept you going?
I think it's because when we were writing the songs, I felt like a part of something. And I was always such a loner and, a freak in school that it made me feel safe in that little group. So I think that pushed me. I think there's something about this camaraderie that you have in a band.
Did you ever get to a point where you were fully sustained by the music?
Yeah, we were, that's right when we blew it. Yeah, that would be.
Right when you got to that point when you could make a living
like
doing music?
82.
Yeah.
By 82, we were, imploding.
Is there a sense of self-sabotage there, you think?
Sure, I'm sure. Well, it's, yeah. Maybe not intentional. But when you're consuming, excessively, and you're not in your right mind, and it's just not a pretty sight. Some people, if they have good management, they have that. We just didn't have that behind us. And I think it was combined with, if it had been all male, it would have been a different story.
Yeah.
I do think that. I think we were very androgynous. And now it's nothing, androgyny is normal. Then it was really, people were intimidated. They really didn't know. I know that we intimidated a lot of people in the business, in the audience. And we were just pussycats. But we looked different, and we wrote about different things that girls didn't usually write about.
Did you find it just easier being in a band with women?
Well, that was such a different band because that was much more commercial.
Yeah.
It was.
You were not going out of your way to alienate people?
No, and we weren't going out of our way to alienate people. We were being ourselves.
Yeah.
I think. I don't think we really were trying to alienate. We were just expressing ourselves.
In the commercial band, you weren't being yourself.
in Bush Tetras.
No, but the
other one, that was a different group of girls, and it was more commercial. It was like songwriting. And one of them, Steph Paines, she's in that band Led Zeppelin. And she's a commercial player. She plays, cover songs, and she was into solos, and, it was a totally different thing. It was totally different musically.
Was it enjoyable?
Yeah, sure.
It still was.
It was, but I never got to that place. There's the thing that's only happened with Bush Tetras. Didn't happen with my band with Ivan. Never happened except with Bush Tetras. I transport. I go to a different place. I'm on stage. I feel like I'm massive. It's like such a treat. And it's like stirring the soup. You're up there and you have this it's just inexplicable. I really do go to a different
I'm going to ask you to try to explic it a little bit. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it's like an out-of-body experience.
Really?
Yeah.
You're watching yourself perform?
Kind of. I feel different. I don't feel like Cynthia. I feel like I feel part of the song. I feel like I'm sending a message.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I feel like my head's going to blow off. Really. And I get very like powerful.
It's interesting. I mean, you're
and I have it with Pat. Pat and I have a thing. We have one song that we play called Ocean. And it's like, we love playing it. I think the other two get sick of playing it, but we're like, we gotta go to
you
that
get the
place.
Vulcan mind meld.
Yeah, and we get really into it.
You're describing a lot of these things. I think that a lot of people are kind of chasing when they do drugs.
Yeah.
This transcendence and out-of-body experience. Really
but with drugs, it's like you stop feeling.
Yeah.
But I never had this when I was drinking. Like, so I used to have to drink a lot to get on stage just because I was so nervous, and that is not happening now.
No,
we're all like sober.
Yeah.
So it's more powerful being sober doing it. Absolutely.
How long were you drinking to get over the stage fright? Was that a constant?
Everybody was drinking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's drinking, and then there's drinking like because I need this to do my job.
Well, I think everybody would drink before they got on stage.
Yeah.
It was just so acceptable. No, I mean, I don't think. And there was a couple times where I drank way too much, but that was because I had laryngitis, and we'd already got paid half up front for the gig, and the band's like, you got to go on.
Yeah.
So then I had, I don't know, a lot of Remy, and I don't remember being on stage. But most of the time it was, moderate, it was just always accepted that you just had several beers before you went on stage or whatever. It was just, everybody did that. It was just it was part of the whole thing.
Yeah. So there were only
very rock and roll.
A few instances of self-medication in that
yeah,
way.
I was well, I mean, as a singer, you can't really do coke. That's a disaster.
Yeah.
Unless you're Marvin Gaye or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You need your nasal cavity.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, no, and you can't. It just messes with your whole thing.
Yeah.
So, no, it's an instrument. You have to protect it. And I learned quickly that certain things didn't work. I was trying to be good.
I mean, it sounds like you're enjoying the process of doing this more than you ever had at any point.
Yeah, I retired early so I could just do this. Yeah, because, it's a lot of fun. I like writing. That's really fun. So we're deep in the writing process. We're trying to get an album together.
How much of the benefit do you think is just not having, because you use the word retire, of not having pressure in the same way that you had when you were coming up?
Oh, yeah, it's really freeing. I mean, the whole thing. It's a whole different life being 60.
Tell me about it.
You just don't give a shit. Like, you're just doing what you want to do because everything's gravy. Everything's good. Like, I have friends dropping like flies, It's great to be on the planet, and I'm just really want to enjoy myself and try to be kind. It's very important to me. Be kind and just try to communicate what I want to communicate. Like, I really love writing the words. I write a lot of them now, and they're very meaningful to me. And I want to keep the same thing where they can mean different things to different people because we've always had that. So that's a nice way to express myself, writing the poetry.
Are you able to do anything with it beyond the band and the album that will come out at some point? Are you doing anything with the words that you're writing?
No, but I do occasionally write stream of conscious, like bits for blogs and things.
Okay. So some of your stuff can be found online.
Yeah, I just wrote something about, Pat Irwin. He has a band with this guy, Jay Walker. Maybe he's saying his name wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry. But he plays trombone and Pat plays guitar, and it's this amazing collection. They recorded this CD. So I wrote something about it that I liked. I like write. Sometimes, but I don't have much time because I do portraits and I still draw and, socialize a lot. There's a lot going on. It's New York.
So
it's hard to fit it in.
Being retired doesn't necessarily mean you've become a hermit.
No, and there's binge watching all these friggin' shows.
I got Netflix to watch.
Yes.
I can't.
I mean, I got rid of cable, but you know, it's just. And I go to a lot of movies. I'm a huge cinephile. I love movies.
Yeah.
Like I love going to movies.
This kind of Zen approach that you have to the band and life and art. I mean, have you always had that to some degree, or has that come? No. What changed?
Not at all.
And when did it change?
I think everything. It's just experience. It's like you make a choice after a while. You see that you can make a choice. Mm-hmm. You can live your life one way, fear-based way, or you can live your life, a different way, and you can choose. It's like getting to a point where you see that you can make a choice, I guess.
And just once you've made that choice enough times, it just kind of changes your outlook on life?
Well, you see the results.
Yeah.
A lot happier, and good things happen, and you can be there for people. It's nice. Doesn't sound very punk rock, does it? I know.
I mean, you used the H word before. You did call yourself a hippie, and
yeah, but I don't. To me, the original hippie idea wasn't such a bad idea. It's just how it was kind of what's the word?
Co-opted.
Yeah, made into some kind of brand. But I mean, we've got a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. Lots of hate, lots of really bad things, and I, really don't want to be a part of that. So I feel like, and I think a lot of my lyrics are like working that kind of shit out.
How directly?
Well, just, thinking about how women are, there's so many bad situations women can be in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think about that. Sometimes I just think about how you can have all these voices going on in your head all the time, just tormenting you. Just things, it's not that I'm always happy now.
Sure.
But I find that, working it out is the answer. And, it's the older you get, the more important that is, because it's all... we're only on it planet for a certain amount of time.
So there isn't going to be a "fuck you, Donald Trump" song necessarily on the next
Well,
record?
we do have this song called "Sucker Is Born." It is about Donald Trump. Yeah, that came out on Third Man. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there is a little bit of
direct.
Yeah.
It's I don't like to be really direct.
Yeah.
I don't like to have a song like "Fuck You, Donald Trump."
Sure.
But I love to get it in there.
Yeah, those don't necessarily age well. Hopefully in a year we won't be dealing with them, and but these larger.
We'll probably have a new Donald Trump.
These larger ideas are still there. You don't necessarily have to name names in that way.
Right. I like that people just look at things a little bit more carefully. Maybe have some feelings.
When you lose a friend, when you lose a bandmate, how much of a motivator is that for you to sort of to keep going while you still can?
Yeah, big. Yeah, it's a big motivator. And plus it's, you're dealing with grief.
Yeah.
I mean, I just lost a parent. It's part of the whole thing. Although I'd lost a lot of friends from AIDS.
Yeah. My
generation's seen a lot of loss. Like, it's a little crazy between Hep C, AIDS, and now cancer. Cancer's reaping havoc on my 60 and up. So it just, I think my generation just specifically has a lot more of that. So it really makes you appreciate life, I guess, for lack of better words. Yeah.
But there's a sense, though, that for as long as you're able to sort of stand up and get out there and can still sing,
and I'm feeling pretty good. I feel lucky. Yeah, I'm kind of survived everything.
It is a funny thing about music where you're 60, but it's like, oh, how much longer can I keep doing this? Is if you were like an accountant, I don't know if you'd necessarily be having that conversation in the same way.
Maybe people are thinking about it more and more, but it's like we just lost Andy Gill. It's crazy, 64. To me, that sounds very young.
Yeah. You guys toured with them, right?
Yeah, we played with them a lot, and it was a big influence. And it's it's a big loss. It's just, and Ivan Krall, I could go on and on. There's just every time I open Facebook, which I kind of avoid Facebook, but I have to get on it sometimes.